Bishop Jerome McCorrY, how are you, my brother?
I'm doing well, Chief. How are you?
I am super fine for an old fella.
All right.
You know, we're in a crisis time, man, and I've been watching your blessings along the way as you climb the rough side of the mountain just like most other black men have to do. And I can see that God keep on blessing you, man. And so I just had to call you and talk to you about what you are doing and your interpretation or views on this crisis that we're in, because God is speaking very loud out here now, and I don't have any problems hearing him, but it appears to me that some of the most powerful people in this nation don't seem to be caring what he's saying and what he's doing, and perhaps don't even see the message in it. Where are you in Dayton, Ohio, and what are you doing?
Well, operating through the International Congress on Faith and Justice, which is a vision God gave us. As you know, we began at the national level working to change communities and to change relationships by fixing what we perceived was a broken criminal justice system, a broken system of families who've got members that aren't able to relate to one another, communities where our young people seem to be turning on each other instead of to each other. We began to address some of those concerns. As we've addressed those concerns, and they say you got to be careful about what you do and what you say because somebody's watching you. And some of our brothers and sisters from Africa, specifically in Kenya, as well as in Pakistan, reached out to us and said some of the issues that you're facing in the United States, we're facing here. How do we become a part of the work you're doing, and how do we get you to help us with some policy kinds of things, with some strategic planning, and how do we become involved? And what that did was it took us from a IRS standing of being a national organization and moved us into a place of international influence. And as a result of that, we've now become the International Congress on Faith and Justice to ensure that we're making room, because we are discovering, and I think coronavirus has taught us what Dr. King said, and that is that we're all tied together as a single garment in destiny. And what that means then is what we're facing in the United States, they're now facing on the continent of Africa, they're facing in China, they're facing in Russia, they're facing this pandemic all across the world. And I believe that God is using it, quite frankly, for our good. Someone asked me today how worried I was, and I had to remind them, God has not given me the spirit of fear. And fear interpreted in its original text is the same as the word worry. What he's given me, however, is a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind. Even amid the coronavirus, even amid COVID-19, I sleep well at night. I rest well at night, because I don't believe that God means this for evil. I think he means it for our good. And that's really the way I see it. I think that the church, especially in the black community, has been lured to sleep. I think that we have been motivated more by building mega buildings than we are with building mega communities, with more than really coming in and making the kind of changes and having the influence that God intended for us to have. And so I see this as a wake-up call. God has a way, whether it's the locust, whether it's the plague, whether it's the flood, of getting the attention of his people, making us sit down, come to grips with who we are and what we are, and then doing something about our condition. I believe it's James 5 that says we've got to stop being that man in the mirror. We've got to stop looking, seeing the condition that we're in, and then we walk away, Scripture says, straightway forgetting what manner of man we were. What that means is we see ourselves in a messed up condition, and we walk away like we didn't see what we just saw. So I believe that this is not so much for the lost, but for those of us who say we've been found, to it looks like to reclaim our families, to reclaim our communities, and to be who we were called to be.
You know, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I had a sense of appreciation for this virus, and I was thinking that I was kind of thinking weird, but I agree with you. I'm not walking in fear. You know, I've done so much in these years that I've been on earth. I've taken so many chances. I've delivered so much service in law enforcement, you know, and I've faced so many guns, until my thing about fear is, if you have faith, and if you are moving on that faith, then there is no sense to worry. But if you don't have faith, well, that's about time to start worrying, isn't it, Bishop?
Come on, it ought to shake us up to get some faith. You know, there used to be a show came on TV called Fear Factor. And people had no problem doing those things that were most familiar, and eating things and taking chances and risk on things that were familiar. It was the unfamiliar that caused fear. This is an unfamiliar pandemic, and I just don't believe that God means for us to fear it. I think that what's happening is, number one, we're seeing more preachers on social media than we've ever seen before, who are all of a sudden preaching the gospel. We also have to be very careful, Chief, about what we promise God. How many times have I heard preachers say, I would preach to an empty church. I'd preach to nobody being on the pews. To all of a sudden, God said, now we're going to prove it. Let's see if you're willing to do that. Let's see if you're willing to do all of the things that you keep saying that you are willing to do. And then I want to say on a positive note that not only do we not fear, but the scripture says, if my people, those that are called by my name, would simply humble themselves, pray, turn from their wicked ways, their steps in this. He said, then will I hear from heaven, and I'll heal the land. And if there's ever a time the land needed to be healed, it's right now.
You know, and I've watched man ignore what I consider as many other messages from God, whom I refer to as the good master, because I've seen landslides and floods and plane crashes and you know, just all kinds of disastrous situation that every time they happen, I look in the mirror and tell myself, do you hear that? You know, it's kind of like that thunder and lightning thing that we used to hear down south, and my grandmama would say, okay, all right, you guys, hush up now, hush up. God is working, you know. And we had to sit there and pay attention and be quiet to ourselves and to what my grandma was saying, and to that wicked sound, man, of that lightning bang, striking, you know, and little heart stuck up in your little throat because you don't understand what's happening, but you got grandmama there telling you that everything's going to be all right. So then it couldn't be as bad as it sounded, we figured, as children, you know. And I'm trying to figure out, Bishop, why is it that the most intelligent or the most powerful people in this nation cannot hear the messages that God is sending us periodically and definitely through this virus?
You know, and I understand exactly that, and that's a very good question. But the Bible again tells us that we got to beware of wicked folk that sit in high places, evil that ends up in high places. And that's what this nation right now is up against. We've got wickedness in high places. From a theological perspective, the evangelical church, who has fed into this new, evil, hateful America, this America who thinks that it's all right to hurt people because they're poor, that thinks it's okay that supremacists seem to be running everything, and it's okay for people to hate other people based on the color of their skin. The evangelical church has embraced this. These are the people that the leaders of this land who sit in Washington, D.C., have on to for spiritual advice. And so you got to be careful about where you're getting your spiritual advice. So on the one hand, the evangelical church has gone so far one way that they have embraced the evil of man. And then on the other hand, you have our churches that are more prevalent, of course, in the black community who haven't reached out to do anything. And so as a consequence of that, I believe that God will cause things to happen as we're seeing right now, simply as a means of getting the attention of both sides. And I know right now in a time like this, he's certainly got the attention of people both on the evangelical side as well as on the more liberal side. But the bottom line is, until all of us turn from menace and return to God, they say during this time that the divorce rate is increasing. They say that during this time, domestic violence cases are now on the increase. It's because we've become so disconnected that we don't even like the people that we go to bed with every night. We don't even sometimes worry about getting along. We don't know what's happening with our own children. I believe that God, again, has allowed this time to work on us so that we, as his people especially, would learn what it looks like to turn to each other and stop turning on each other. Now is the time for us to come together and to turn to God in a corporate fashion, not just in an individualized or personalized fashion, but in a corporate manner. We as people must all turn and look at the face of God and yield ourselves and control of ourselves to God.
You know, I think all the time that I'm no better than anybody else in this world, but I'm just as good. And I wish that most people could get to that point. You know, because if we could all reach that point, and all of us not going to do anything, but if a significant number of us could reach that point, then we could stop being so destructively critical of each other. I don't think there's nothing wrong with good criticism, you know. But because that is intended to help to make you better than what you are. Destructive criticism is to tear somebody else down. And I'm seeing too much of that these days on social media, in the community, and everywhere that I go. What do you say to the people, Bishop, about just coming to grip with the reality of self and how you're no better than anybody else, but you're just as good?
Absolutely. And that's a very, very important point. None of us are any better. We're no better off than each other. We have to rely on each other. We have to count on each other, as these times are absolutely teaching us. And I think that that's a part of the message that we have to face in times like these. We may have our philosophical differences. We may have our religious differences. We may have our political differences. But the truth of the matter is, the bottom line is, until we learn as people to embrace each other, regardless of what we look like, regardless of where we come from, this whole notion of not being able to speak to some people because their zip code is not your zip code, they don't live where you live, are the kinds of things that have separated us from one another. And God just flat out honestly is not pleased, I don't believe, with this kind of action. It is time for us to be honest about what we see when we look at each other and begin to embrace each other. It's never ceased to amaze me that I'm one of those people who speaks to everybody. It's kind of a Southern mentality. And I get teased sometimes, but it's hard for me to walk past folks. I don't care who they are and not say, hey, how you doing, or good morning, or something to them. But people look at you strange now for even speaking to them. Social media has made it even worse because now we have folks, like you say, who are fighting on Facebook. We also have Facebook warriors where everybody promises they're going to do everything on Facebook. We've got people calling each other out on Twitter, and we're tweeting against each other. We've got all kinds of evil going on, and what technology has done is it's made it easier for us to fight each other and not even look at each other. We are dysfunctional. We are a dysfunctional family, and I'm talking about the human family. We have become dysfunctional. We have lost any semblance of love and respect for one another. And again, I just absolutely believe that the time for us to humble ourselves and to come back to one another is during not just these situations, is the beginning of us coming back together. But like you said, when that lightning is flashing, when planes crash, we look at each other and say, wow, what a terrible shame, and we go on with life as usual. I think that, again, God is using this time to make people look and say, it can happen to anybody at any time. I need to get better. And that goes for me as well.
What do you say to the person who is not as spiritually astute as you and perhaps me, because I definitely believe in the power of the good master? What do you say to them about what do they do when they go to sleep, and what do they do when they wake up? Should they go to sleep scared and wake up scared, oh my God, mentality or attitude? What do you say to just regular people who haven't really understand that faith of a mustard seed can match up with this little virus that's becoming big as a bear out here?
You know, what I say to people who may not be the believers yet is, if you look around you, God has proven himself. Not only when the sun shines like it is in a lot of places today, not only can you feel his movement in the gentle breeze, but the truth of the matter is, when we lose control of situations, God takes over, and we need to be honest about that. And then, of all people, let me quote Donald Trump, who said to black people when he was running for office, what do you have to lose? Now, we had a lot to lose with him, and he proves that every day. But when it comes to God, I tell people, especially in times like these, steal away by yourself. You don't have to be around anybody, but steal away. And I dare you to just whisper a little thought to who is the supreme being, the Most High God, whether you refer to him as God, whether you refer to him as Allah, whether you refer to God as Yah or Jah, but steal away and just begin to meditate and let God work as he works, and let you then be the judge as to whether or not this God of ours is real or unreal. He's willing to prove himself, and I believe that's what he's doing in this season.
Well, man, I sure do appreciate your wisdom. I knew you as a little boy, and I used to talk to you then, and now I know you as a man, and that wisdom coming out of you now is something else. And I am really appreciative of that. Where is the International Congress headed at this point? What's your purpose?
Absolutely. Where we're headed at this point is, first of all, and I think you hit something on the head that is so very important, and that is that we're not communicating with each other. We can't fix the things that are broken. We have a broken criminal justice system. Therefore, I believe that prosecutors, attorneys, judges, police officers, the people, and especially the church, have to all come together, and we have to build solutions around the things that are bothering us. But I think that we also have to look within our communities, and we have to be honest about the issues. As recently as just a couple of weeks ago, I was called in on a situation where a young man had been killed by the police. We made sure that the family had the opportunity to see the video, and you can imagine how heartbroken I was as this young man goes down, as they freeze frame, to see this gun in the young man's hand. We want to address our children and our young people that we got to get away from these guns. We have to get away from a lifestyle that brings heat and pressure upon us. Yes, we go after that system when that system is wrong, but we also have to sit down with parents. We have to sit down with neighbors. We have to sit down with some other people and say, but let's fix what's broken in our community as well. So the Congress is headed in that direction. We believe in coming together, not staying apart. We don't believe that all of our community is bad. We don't believe all of our police officers are bad. What we do believe is wherever we find evil, that you got to root it out. But it's going to take us coming together. We also feel, let me say, that faith is the key to making it work. Until our faith leaders get shaken and awakened working in the community, regardless of where they go to church or worship, regardless of whether they don't go anywhere to worship. We have a responsibility to our God, first of all, to ensure that people are well taken care of in these situations. And so that's the direction that the Congress is moving in. And again, we've taken on that international flair because we're learning that a lot of these same conditions exist in other parts of our world.
Well, I sure am glad you mentioned the hurt that you felt behind that video situation, because I was at the county jail last week and we did a shakedown. And I'm telling you, man, to watch those 40 or so young black men, beautiful black men, some of them intelligent, strong. Man, it hurt my heart so bad to see the mentality that they were reflecting, the garbage that they were talking, the games that they were playing, you know, the schemes they was trying to pull off. And it just broke my heart, man, because I just could imagine what all 40 of them or so, if they had paid attention to grade school and high school, and if they had been fed and ate the right foods when they were younger for the proper nourishment, if they had mind their mamas, daddies, grandmamas, and other relatives, if they had inspired themselves and gotten motivated to find that genius that God placed in their psyche upon their conception, man, though they could be a power out here in this community to deal with, to work with. But rather than that, they're caged up in that jail, trying to blame the courts and the police and everybody else for their problems, rather than coming to grips with themselves. Man, I sense that same hurt or that same feeling that you sensed with that boy that you discovered on that videotape, you know, with the gun involved. And this time that we are in now, our parents are going to have to come to grips with themselves and address their children better, don't they?
You know, that's absolutely true. And again, I think that when we look at this pandemic, and it's amazing how God threads all of this together with more people now, and especially with our men. You're right, being confined to being at home and being told, you know, your job is not essential. Inside that message is then that God is saying you must be essential at home. Go home and relate to your children. Go home and use this time not just to sit around and look at television and do a bunch of nonsense, but spend some time instructing your children. You know, mama, get with your daughters and instruct your daughters just as men need to get with their sons and talk to our sons. There are ways that we can fix what's broken in our community, but we have got to stop watching our young people in and out on a continuous basis with the criminal justice system that, yes, that is broken. So what we have to do is stop feeding it by allowing our young people to act any old kind of way. We allow them at an early age to make their own decisions and say that they can think for themselves, when the truth of the matter is it's going to take some old school raising to reach and to teach our young people. They're not just our future, they're our present. And if we don't reach them right now, we won't have much of a future.
You're absolutely correct. Bishop, I want to thank you for taking this time to interview with me today. And do you have a last word?
You know, my last word is simply to remind the people to pray. When you can't do anything else, you pray. You remind men, spend some time reassuring your wife, reassuring your significant other that if you made those children, you don't have no problem staying there and taking care of those children. Women, reassure that man in your life that he really does mean something to you, and use this time to come together, and use this time as you embrace each other to also embrace a God who so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son.
And I want to thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief. always, I appreciate you as well. Keep doing what you're doing.
Okay. So long.